Am I supposed to start talking now? Our relationship was established through correspondence, in essence. I have often commented, and I probably will comment over the years, that had either one of us felt that there was any lack of integrity, our correspondence would not have continued. So that's basic to any relationship, as far as I'm concerned, and particularly a relationship as intimate as marriage. Unique, probably because of the problems that Grandma had to solve in order for it to take place. One of the first things I suppose I would say is that I either didn't know or had forgotten the date of our wedding. So as I drove up from Arizona and stopped in Blanding, where my sister Glendora lived, to come on up here, I arrived barely on the 19th in Salt Lake, and that too late to get our wedding
license.
I guess that'll fit. Anyway, Grandma called the clerk and told him of my problems, and he was kind enough, unbelievably kind enough, to take him home with him, and told her to look him up when I got in Salt Lake. So when I finally arrived, we played around a bit, as it were, went and found him, only to find that the requisite from Mississippi didn't require a physical exam, as I recall, and Utah did. So she made arrangements to go to the doctor at the emergency room at St. Mark's Hospital, where she had studied nursing, and he said, well, if you get that document, then come by in the morning on your way to Logan. And so that's what we did. Went and saw the doctor that was on call that night, and got the necessary paperwork, and then went by the county clerk's home again. I just can't imagine anyone being as cooperative and kind as he was in putting up with my lack of preparedness. Anyway, that's what we did. Went by and picked up the license on our way to Logan. There was one other significant problem, and that was that my membership had never been transferred from Mexico City, where it had been while I was working with Aftosa. That meant that I didn't have a temple recommend.
Okay.
It so happened that Grandma and Grandpa Pratt were here a little bit early, and that's great Grandma and Grandpa Pratt. Grandma Pratt, my fiance, was aware of it. And Grandpa Pratt, great-grandpa Pratt, apparently spoke with some of the members of the presidency of the church, an elder Joseph. The name doesn't come to me, even though I know it very well, but he was a secretary to the presidency. He and Grandpa contacted the Southern States Mission President, who gave his verbal approval. Apparently Grandpa spoke with President Clark, J. Reuben Clark, a counselor in the first presidency, who said that I could go pending an interview with the temple president. So those details, or whatever you're wanting to call it, about the peculiarities or whatever of our wedding day. We spent 2 days, as I recall, in the Salt Lake area, right after our marriage, because this was, as I recall, on a Friday. The wedding was, as I recall, on a Friday. We spent Saturday and Sunday, and then on Monday we headed back to Douglas, Arizona, which is where my mother was living at the time, and she had accompanied me all this way, and where one of my brothers, loaned me his car. So we returned to Douglas, turned in the car, got on the train, and went to Biloxi, Mississippi, where I had been stationed, or was stationed in the military. From that date, in July of '51, as I recall, it was about, I'll say the springtime, I don't remember, February, March, what day, I was transferred from Biloxi to Denver, Colorado. And we took advantage of that transfer to do a little bit of sightseeing. When we got in Denver, I started in an electronics course there, and was in, while we were living in Denver, that our first child, Carl, was born. And we were living in a suburb of Denver called Aurora, where there happened to be a military Fitzsimmons Hospital, where he was born. The course that I went there to study happened to be a guided missile course, which ultimately would have taken us to Cape Canaveral, Cañaveral in Spanish, down in Florida. As I recall, the course was about 12 weeks long. At about 10 weeks, thereabouts, I shouldn't be saying because it isn't that significant and I don't remember for sure, but lacking little, they stopped the course. And after a week or so, they renewed it, but did not finish it. I had two alternatives, as it were, that were presented to me. One of them was to study what they call the K systems, which, as I recall, and here again, poor memory, there was somewhat of a delay in getting into that course. The alternate that was offered was that there was a requirement of what little bit of electronic training I had to be used in aerial photography, the camera maintenance, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So that course, or that route, led to Lockbourne Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio. There was some transfer time, I don't recall what specifically, but at any rate, we took our time, visited family here in Utah, wound up down in Chihuahua, where great grandma and grandpa Pratt lived at that time. Just prior to leaving Denver, we bought a travel trailer, which I left at the home of some Mexican friends. Anyway, I left Grandma and Carl in Chihuahua with Grandma and Grandpa Pratt, drove up to Denver, picked up the trailer, and pulled it back to Denver, or rather to Columbus. And within days, Grandma and Carl flew out and joined me in Columbus.
Mm.